You've got some older children, and you also just had a new baby last year. So congratulations. And I'm curious, between Tony 30, 40 years ago as a father and now stepping into fatherhood, what do you feel like might have been, what did you do really well when you're like, I definitely want to bring this in? Or what are some things where you're like, all right, I probably need to switch that? Because there's a lot of people listening that have children and they're helping them create that identity all of the time. And so are there shifts that you've made from, the new baby that you have, you're like, I definitely got to not do this again, or I got to make sure that I do this to make sure that you help the identity come out the most positive that you possibly can?
Yes, for sure. Well, first of all, I have 5 kids and 5 grandkids, to give you an idea. And I was 24 and had a 17-year-old son instantly, an 11-year-old son instantly, daughter instantly, a 5-year-old son, and then my own blood child on the way. So I had quite a learning. I married a woman that was 12 years my senior. Yeah. And so she'd been married twice and had kids from different fathers, and I had brought them all into my life. So it was a huge part of my growth alone. Mm-hmm. And so, when you're 25 and you're trying to change the world, and now you got all these kids all of a sudden, and they're all in different stages of life, I really had to learn and grow. And I'm proud of what I've done, and I'm super proud of my kids. They're all adults today. And, as I said, I have 5 grandkids. So my grandkids are all older than my youngest daughter now, who's 20 months old. The biggest thing that I've learned because of dealing with so many human beings is so many human beings in the last decade or two, we've shifted how we raise our children. Every generation, tends to react to how they were raised. Mm-hmm. So baby boomers, were raised in an environment where their parents, went to war and so forth, and they came back and had all these babies and they wanted them to have a better life. So they told them they were great, sent them to college, gave them everything, and made them very much narcissistic, not every person, but as a culture, it was more about me, and maybe my mission out there when I wasn't busy, making love, having sex, some mission out here larger than myself, because they didn't have to fight the war. There's an old phrase that says, art for art's sake is this philosophy of the well-fed. Well, they never had to face anything, the baby boomers. So they were focused on their spiritual development because they had that privilege, right? And they judged their parents for not being open enough or wide enough or whatever the case may be, right? Mm-hmm. But then those parents did not pay attention to their kids. They were totally protected initially. They didn't protect their kids. They're busy out doing other things. So the kids that grew up in the 80s and 90s were latchkey kids, not everyone, but it was a different generation. They were raised to be pragmatic. If you ask people, and they've been asking this question since the 60s in college, what's more important for life? A philosophy of life that makes you happy, or pragmatic skills that give you financial freedom? And in the 60s and 70s, 82% plus always said philosophy of life. In the 80s and 90s and 2000s, it was exactly reversed to pragmatic skills. So now those latchkey kids became the ones that overprotected their children because they weren't. And so their children have been raised baby on board. See, in the 70s, every movie about children was Rosemary's Baby, Exorcist, Then all of a sudden it's the 80s and 90s, it's 3 guys raising a baby, babies are beautiful, baby on board. The entire philosophy changed to the entire focus is on the child. Yeah. And that hurt intimate relationships immensely because they put the kids first. And then it also made these kids think they're the most important thing on earth. And so there's so many problems for young people today. When I say young people, millennials are now turning 40. They think they're old now, or they think they're going to become old soon. And the Z generation's fighting them about where they part their hair and all this stupid shit. But the point of the matter is, this group of people has really not faced a real challenge.